All right, great. So we're gonna kind of focus this on one thing because, especially for you guys, because you're gonna have some sparring and fights hopefully coming up pretty soon. Definitely you got fights coming up. But what we did in the class, you weren't in the class, but what we did in the class is we worked on stepping out, and we did this last week. We worked on stepping out and pivoting, and then the L step. So what I wanna do is kind of build on that. So I'm gonna start really with the concept first on why we're doing this. So you guys, we've talked about this a lot. You guys, same height, real tall for your weight. And for the most part, you're gonna have people coming in, attacking you, trying to get on the inside, close the distance, because they're not gonna let you sit on the outside and just score points with your jab. It's not gonna be as simple as 1-2s, 1-2-1s, jab, jab. You're not gonna be able to always, they're not gonna let you stay on the outside the whole time. So in anticipation of that, we know that they're gonna be coming in after you guys trying to go to the body. That doesn't mean that we still can't stay on the outside and still can't use jabs, 1-2-1s, and those long punches. Is that we have to have a method of dealing with them coming in and closing the distance. And that's where the step out and the pivot comes, and then the L step. The L step is a quick way to change directions to the right. The step out and the pivot is another way to keep going to your left, but get an angle change on someone. So if you're moving, you can just move, skip. We can skip as we're moving, and you can do the same thing to the right. You get a little bit of different skipping, always maintaining your framing, always maintaining the distance between the legs. This is something that we're normally going to do as we're going on the circle and moving around. But the pivot, the step out, and the pivot is a way to really do a quick angle change. And the same thing, say I might step out and pivot, and now we want to quickly change this way. That's where the L step comes in to get another, a pretty drastic angle change. So that's what you got to keep in mind. Step out and pivot, and the L step is really what you want to use to change directions, whatever direction, quickly. So when sparring tomorrow, or your fight, same game plan, which is kind of perfect for you. Your game plan that we're going to use when we're fighting these guys that are going to be shorter than you coming after you, same thing with you, is to maintain distance on them and constantly working on getting angles. And when you sparred this last time, you could see a lot of people were frustrated when you started to get some angle changes on them and shooting the jab. So we're just gonna kind of move forward on that and expand on what we're trying to do there. So when you're boxing and you're moving, what we're gonna do today is constant angle changing. That doesn't mean left, right. But what we're gonna do is, the key to it is if you're moving to your left, you wanna see when they get comfortable, and if they start trying to catch up to you, that's when you would, maybe L step to your right and get an angle change. Remember, I've always told you guys this. We always wanna do what, as far as movement? Lead the dance, right? And you guys understand what I mean by lead the dance? You understand what I mean by lead?
We take the first step, they have to follow.
Exactly. We want to be in control of everything. And that's what we're going to work on today, leading the dance. This way, we're in control of getting to a spot that we want to be in at the right distance, at the right angle, so that we can start our offense. And sometimes it's really up to you, and you can get it as you get more experience. If sometimes you could lull someone into slowly going right here, and then giving a feint jab, and then stepping out and pivot, and then angle change real quick and attack. So there's no set pattern on how you do it, no set speed on how you do it. Sometimes you just gotta move over here a little bit, moving this way, guys, this way. Yeah, so out of the way of camera. So sometimes you might just be right here, feinting, bam, bam, moving, angle change, step right here, angle change again, that kind of hesitation, feints, angle change, jabs. They're all different things you could use to disrupt their rhythm, disrupt the kind of confuse them, get them going one direction so that you could go in the other direction. These are all techniques we're gonna have to use. So for you, and I want you to listen for his game plan. You can't just keep circling on the outside against these guys, because what's gonna happen is they're just gonna bum rush you and you're gonna get trapped in the corners. The corners, if you stay in a big circle on the outside, if you keep moving, you're gonna end up either keeping running and never being able to stop and punch, to plant and punch, and eventually when you start moving around here, like you're coming from here to here, if you go too deep, they're gonna back you up and you're gonna get stuck in these corners. Remember, from like this point to this point, whenever you kind of cross inside of there, you're in danger because the angle is just really tight to get out. So what we wanna do is sometimes change your rhythms. Remember, when we throw a jab, what happens to the other person when you throw jabs at them?
They back up.
Sometimes they back up. What else do they do? They slip, they parry, you hit them. I mean, there's a lot of options to it. So when you throw your jab, that's one way of disrupting rhythm. Even if you're threatening to throw a jab, if you sit there and you angle change and you give a feint and then you measure, you show a jab and you measure, they have to respect that, because if they don't, if you show a jab and then you're able to, and they don't react, then you're able to step in and boom, boom, because you've got a good measure, you measure them well. That's gonna be important, because those type of half jabs, feints, full jabs are gonna give you what? Information, right? And that's what we wanna work on. So today what we're gonna work on, and that's why I brought out the cones, is what we're gonna do is start, that's our opponent. We're gonna start in the middle of the crotch of my opponent. I might back up from him. I might just get some rhythm, jab, jab, step back, step, pivot, and then L step and get right behind him. Bam, 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 okay? And that's what we wanna do. And I want you guys to develop your own rhythm to maybe you step here, L step back here, right here, here, you know what I mean? Always keeping your framing. It's gonna be different for everybody. I can do certain things that you can't do. You're gonna be able to do certain things he can't do, vice versa. But we have to understand the concept. The concept is to change directions on them. Sometimes you might be sitting there feinting, you might do a subtle, just change the directions here, change it back here, change it back, and then boom, pivot. You do an explosive change of direction. Another thing that I really want you guys to understand is that when you do these angle changes, come right here, get in front of me like we're fighting. You don't want to do your angle changes at the same distance. You don't want to step, pivot, and then go right here, always in punching distance. Because, look how close he is, right? What you might want to do sometimes is you might want to step out, pivot, but I've increased my distance, and then L step to a further distance. I might step right here, and then, so you're in and out on those angle changes. So that's really going to keep them on their toes. Because remember, that every time you're moving and you're feinting, your opponent's doing the same thing, right? They're trying to time and get a feint to see if you flinch. So that most of the time when people feint, they're trying to get information out of you. But sometimes if they feint you, they catch you off guard, and then you go, and then you're stuck. Your first reaction is, all right, let me brace and take some impact, or see what they're going to do, get in defensive position. They're going to do that to you too. So you got to constantly be going back and forth through that back and forth feints, angle changes, distance and angle changes at the same time. And then also when you say you do an L step, right? Here goes an example. Also say you do an L step and you increase your distance and you got a good angle, but the person's kind of far away from you. What do? Speak it up. Well, if I increase my distance, the first thing before I can hit him, if I'm too far, is to what? Step in. I might get in a further angle change, and now I step in, right? So it does me no good if he falls for the trap, I step out and pivot, and that angle change out here, I can't do anything. But if I do one more angle change and then bam, close the distance. So even when you angle change, and that's the purpose of today, one of the purposes today that we're gonna learn, one of the things we're gonna learn, even if you angle change, you can still do a distance change. And that's why we're gonna use the cones. So what we're gonna practice on the cones is we'll do with one stationary one now, because I want you to be about a foot or so from the cone, and I want you to step out and pivot, and then L step to a further distance. Get back in there, throw some jazz, boom, boom, back up, step out and pivot, angle change close to the cone, because that's when the guy goes that way. If you feel that guy's attacking, I'll sit there, I might step out and pivot, and then angle change at a distance and get right back in fighting position. So we're gonna put multiple cones. So this is where we're gonna start on this cone. This is gonna be there and probably maybe here. And then what we'll do is we wanna make sure that when we angle change, we're getting away from that cone on the outside. When we step out and pivot, boom, boom, I get further distance here. And then when I angle change this way, I might get right on the cone this time, or I might go an L step 1, 2, and get a different angle, all right? So that's what we're gonna do starting right now. What's the goal? What's the goal? Speak up. But how's it going? And incorporating distance changes. Experiment. There's no right or wrong right now. So we're gonna do two sets of cones. Set that one up kind of like hers. Maybe like that. And then, let's see, maybe like that. Let's see, do it right here. So how you're kind of hopping?
Yeah.
So you just jump, you're jumping from space to space.
Okay.
So remember, we can do it in small steps. I can start here and do a little bit right here. So I reset myself right here and then step and pivot and then angle change right here. Bam, over the middle. I might slide to my right, reestablish myself, jab, jab, step, pivot, stay on it, boom, boom. Step back, step, pivot, angle change right back to the middle. So I want to work on each cone. You could go across the cones really small with little steps. You can take bigger steps. This is work on the angle changes. Get some rhythm, do it off of rhythm. There's no right or wrong in the beginning. I'll correct it. Hey Derek, why don't you angle yours a little bit this way? Like right here and here. This way you're out of her way. You need more room? You can push it in, push it in. There you go. Practice it with smaller steps sometimes. Don't do it in such long ones. Like when you do your L step, when you step out from this cone, I'm using the other cone as a point of reference. I step out here, bam, I might jab, bam, and I feel pressure. I might go a little small one and another one. You don't always have to go here to, you can do little, L step can be a series of quick ones. You can do one L step and then little step. Good.